Hello, my name is Darcia Narvaez, and I am here with Four Arrows. I'm a retired emerita professor of psychology from the University of Notre Dame, and we've been delighted to work together in various ways, including our recent book, Restoring the Kinship Worldview. And today we're going to talk about the Indigenous Worldview. But first, Four Arrows, do you want to introduce yourself?
Well, I just am always so happy to partner with you, and as we've been doing for a number of years to bring forth the realization of what is the foundation for both our problems and solutions on this planet. And I'm a professor at Fielding Graduate University, former director of education at Oglala Lakota College, and I focus a lot on wellness over the last 40 years, but I say 2/3 of my books have been on how the indigenous worldview applications for our lives bring forth wellness, and that's what we're going to talk about today.
That's right. And my work is in developmental psychology and human flourishing and morality. And it all kind of comes together, I think, in the Indigenous worldview and practices of Indigenous peoples.
Well, I
So
think
let's
that's
maybe,
yeah, I think that's the complementarity
yes,
between us is that you've got that background, I've got the higher education background, so I'm kind of coming at it, from people who don't know, who are adults or are in school, and then you're coming at it from prenatal to upbringing, and I think that combination is vital.
that's right. So maybe we should start with definition then of what's the Indigenous worldview and how is that different from the Indigenous traditional knowledge, I guess.
Well, the first idea of worldview came out of German philosophy, Weltanschauung it was called, and it was defined as sort of an intuition of the world. Um, and then it kind of got lost in the swamp where everybody said any belief is a worldview, right? Everybody's got one. But then because the early debates about worldview related to science versus religion, after sort of the academic views of it dissipated, religion took over. And you go to Amazon and put in worldview, 99% of 1,000 books will be all about different religions saying that they are a worldview or competing with other religions as worldviews. But more and more of the scholarship has come back since the sort of father of social anthropology, Robert Redfield, out of the University of Chicago, brought it back as a way to begin to understand anthropology. And he essentially said, there were three worldviews, he thought, essentially, Eastern, Western, and what he called primitive. But then by the end of his career, he said, the Eastern's been pretty much subsumed, and this great diversity of spiritual traditions in the West and the East really can tend to fall either under a dominant worldview that we have or the one that is being chased away, overshadowed, killed. And that was the indigenous worldview. So I kind of take that slant on it, not because of Redfield so much, but because when I look at scholarship discussions on worldview, they almost always wind up talking about the things that are on our chart. Is it anthropocentric or not? Is it spiritual or materialistic? Is it? And I thought, well, if they're going to be talking that way, and yet these are still people that think there's a million worldviews, that doesn't make sense. So I'm a big believer in the two worldview theory, if you will, and that all of the great diversity of indigenous cultures, which are very different, tend to have common denominators that relate to indigenous worldview, which is a nature-based, kinship-oriented worldview that was kind of let go. There's probably indigenous people that let it go because greed and power and all these monsters that are inside of us have always been, and indigenous stories and the way of them creating worldview was based on looking at this symbiosis of nature and following it. But then somebody and somehow humans separated themselves from nature and became sort of arrogantly superior to nature. And that's how we've been for the past 10,000 years, especially the past 2,000 years.
At least in the civilizations, right? Not the native peoples have
Right. Thank you. Yeah,
maintained.
I should have said that. That's how we, the dominant cultures, right, have. But the indigenous peoples have tried to hold on to that. Now, that doesn't mean they've been successful. You can only take so much brainwashing and so much caging. And I have the great Navajo Nation. My students tell me, who are coming to try to save the language and save the culture, that about 70% of the nation has lost it, right? And so the effort to support place-based wisdom that requires knowing the ceremonies and languages and territory is vital. But I think part of helping that is for worldview, which is those in common pieces of these things that we've got to save. That belongs to everybody indigenous to the planet. And I think making that distinction, we can help indigenous cultures by promoting a worldview that those people who still are holding on to it have proven sustainable and are proving it today.
Yes. And the way I have come to this realization is through science, and realizing that the way we develop children and nurture them or not, and what we cultivate about their human spirit matters here, because we can traumatize them in so many ways. Babies, you leave them in distress, you're traumatizing poor baby. And now you've now broken the sense of connection that baby has from the beginning in the womb. And then you do all these repeated traumatizations of disconnecting them from being, loved and cared for and their needs met. And you develop then this alternative worldview of separation, of superiority, because you have to build a chip on your shoulder to survive, a big ego to get through life. And so we end up on these extremes, right? So a well-nurtured child is going to be be in a culture that's wellness oriented, and that's the indigenous ways of being all over the world. Difference, all very different, but having very similar ways of raising the young, because we're animals, and animals raise their young to flourish. And that's our tradition, our heritage as well. But when the culture came in, the dominant culture built up over generations, it was forgotten, as if you had to punish children in order for them to be good, which is the opposite really of the case.
Exactly. And if you look at our worldview chart and study it and think about, well, okay, what is the best way for a family to raise a child, right? And you really just start to look at, well, is it better to be hierarchical like the not dominant is, or is it better to be non-hierarchical like the indigenous one? Is it a good thing to foster courage and a sort of a fearless trust in the universe? Is it good to have a socially purposeful life? Is it important to be empathetic? Is it important to see competition as a way to develop positive potential instead of to be superior? Is it about an emphasis on responsibility versus rights? In other words, I'm just kind of going down the list. Personal vitality, nature as benevolent, instead of telling a little child, get away from that dirt, like you say. And the nonlinear thinking what children do, which is a worldview precept, right? So I think that when people start to study our worldview chart, that they can look at their own challenges in life and their own relations in life and go, like a left and right brain. You say this all the time, right? That you can kind of look at the left side of the chart as with laterality in mind, and look at that as the left brain and the right brain. So there's not a good and bad necessarily until you start overemphasizing hierarchy, overemphasizing selfishness instead of social purpose. And so it's a balancing thing, and we're way, way, way out of balance, which means we want to start moving towards that right side of the chart a lot more. And that's what who was the guy that Jeremy Lint?
Yes.
Was this the guy who interviewed us? I didn't know that George Montbiant and The Guardian have referred to him as one of the greatest thinkers of our time. But when he took our chart and blew it up and put it on his fence in Berkeley, California, I thought, I gotta find out who this guy is, and so there's a lot of people that are seeing, wow, what a simple idea. But those 40 worldview precepts, that's a result of a lot of scholarship from current contemporary cultures that have been studied by the United Nations, from first contacts like Christopher Columbus, who said, I've never met people who are so generous, etc. Of course, he said they'll make good slaves out of it, instead of saying, yeah, that would be the way to live. And so I think this worldview chart, and then, the Institute of Noetic Sciences, although they still tend to not fall into the two worldviews, Edgar Mitchell does. And he was the seventh man to walk on the moon. And first thing he did when he came back, he quit NASA and formed the Institute of Noetic Sciences. And the main project that they have going is this worldview education. And he said on the back cover of a book that only a handful of visionaries understand that Indigenous worldview is a solution to the future. And so I think that this worldview chart, I just want everybody to have it in their bathrooms.
Yes, and so adults can use the chart to guide themselves back into a balanced life, right? An integrated brain, essentially. And parents and community members can use it to realize what children need and to guide them so that they don't have to do all the healing as an adult to get back to being a centered, fully human being.
Beautifully
So thank
said.
you. Thanks so much.
My pleasure.